Thank you very much indeed. Rocco, very quickly, we have such wonderful presentations and ideas and descriptions from you. I'm just wondering, how can we make Hong Kong not just a breeding ground for ideas, but enable Hong Kong to export these ideas? There's a microphone on the table as well.
Well, I'm an architect, but I always said that in this new century, the city precedes architecture. You cannot have good architecture unless you have a well-designed city. And that's why we should start, I think, with an optimum fabric. An optimum fabric. Now, I could point to cities in the world with all the good intentions, but it has a basic fault, which is that the fabric is wrong to start with. I could point to a lot of cities in China where roads are a mile wide and buildings are spread. And no matter how well you design walking environments, people would take to the cars to go even to a few blocks away. So I think one of the advantages we have in Hong Kong is that, perhaps not by design, but because by our natural topography and history of development, we have come up with a city which is quite rich in our fabric and quite compact, sometimes overly so, maybe. And that is something I think we should all look at before we even start talking about innovative ideas in architecture and all the rest.
Thank you. Mariella, in your presentation, and I know that when we've been tweeting throughout this conference, in particular, we were told that Wan Chai is a walker's paradise. It's not something that I feel I acknowledge, but does that just go to show that while you have really good data, we also have bad data, and how do we avoid getting the two conflated?
It's a great question. I won't get into why the walk score is bad data. I think everyone here knows that. You know, I think it's difficult. I think we have to lead by example. The practitioners, the people that are experts in this space of walkability, livability. I think they have to be more vocal about the bad data that's out there. That's starting to be the case with walk score. It's not bad data per se. It's just you have to understand what its proper use is. So it's a good proxy, but it doesn't have diagnostic value. And the proxy aspect of it sort of ends at a certain point. I've written about this, published work on this. So below 70 for a walk score, it doesn't actually correlate with on the ground built environment. The experience of walking is not captured, so it loses its utility. It's also not a good proxy for areas of low income. It just doesn't predict it well. And so I think for us, it's really important to understand that, explain that, and then also take that into account when you're looking for data to help you make decisions and also to help you make the justifications that I talked about before. So from a policy perspective, intervention perspective, walk score is not the appropriate use of data. But to help sort of spread the word of walkability, it's been fantastic.
Thank you. And Sky, we do have this great book that you can hold it up as well, just show everyone. I have this coming out next week. And this is your baby, it's a Bible. I'm just wondering, how will you ensure that everything in this book will go on to help change cities around the world? And I know you mentioned as well, after we had Sao Paulo, Addis Ababa, Bogota, how are we going to see this help change and transform streets? How will you ensure that?
Sure. So yes, it has been our little baby, but it's also just to remind everyone that we've kind of played a role of collating a lot of these best practices. And one of my favorite pages, as non-visual as it is the acknowledgements page in this book. That really, we've got, I know, Alexander, Gabby, and the audience from different parts of the world who've given us input from every corner. These two, particularly from Brazil and from Stockholm. But part of the idea is that through having a collaborative process that has helped contribute this as a local ownership, and we really have just tried to provide a set of tools that local people in different contexts around the world can take and try and apply these in their local contexts, right? And whether that's as a city official, whether it's as an advocate, whether it's as a designer, each of us get a chance to make a decision, to draw a line, to spark a conversation, to ask a question that can help promote us, help promote cities that have streets where they're accessible to everybody, right? Our streets are our bones of our city. We can certainly do a lot of wonderful things in the private property and then real estate, but if we don't get our streets right in a city, we're in serious trouble. And I think the great thing is a lot of cities are realizing this now. We're getting more and more metrics to help tell that story, and people are realizing that there's really no alternative.
It's good to hear. I want to throw it open to the audience. Please raise your hands as fast as possible if you want to get in a question for our panelists. I saw this gentleman in the black shirt right in the middle. If we can get a microphone over to him. And just to let you know that our guests hopefully will be around. You can have a chat and have some coffee with them afterwards. Who's your question for,
Sorry,
sir?
I'll just quickly also add, I forgot to mention before, but I do have 20% discount codes here if anyone wants to
Oh, there we go. You, sir.
Myron Pierce. Question for kind of how seeing the fun in Hong Kong. So the great example that Rocco gives of Tamar. When you look one way, it's great down, but we know the challenge we had talking to a property owner when we turn the other way and we get a brick wall, that walkway that doesn't commute and link up. The challenge between government departments and organisations, from an experience, what are you seeing are the key things for the individual to do to help break down those barriers between government departments? When we see here in like Hong Kong, the roading department, highways department says it's 3.5 metres and concrete wall to protect you. When we have seen these great examples around the slides that you showed, Sky, what are some of the just couple of little key points to say, okay, everyone could talk up and do this, it'll help in any city to get through that scared factor about you can't have skateboarders, pram pushers, walkers and cars or trams working in the same block of land, which we seem to still be in the mindset here in Hong Kong, in our new developments, besides waterfront. So opening to the two of you, what are you seeing as the key points for any city to help break down the mindset change?
Good.
So part of what we're hoping with this is that it's accessible enough to a broad enough audience that more people can kind of bring it and showcase some of the examples and kind of point to other cities and sometimes competitiveness between cities can be a great thing, right? Well, look, this is what they do over there. This is how they do it in this city. We should kind of get better at this. And part of what we've found, at least in the United States context, with the Urban Street Design Guide, is that this has acted like a permission slip for practitioners to do something that's different. So it's a little bit about getting initial projects on the ground, so that if we can give someone the permission who wants to do the right thing, the ability to do that and to take this resource, that's a starting point, right? Then when we get something on the ground, we've got something to point to in that context. And as individuals, I think if you go and you ask questions, if you're meeting with the road department and you take a resource with you and say, listen, international best practice is saying that this is what we should be doing. Why can't we do it? Where are the impediments? You have to be a little bold and dig a little deeper to understand where the impediments are to the best practice that we're trying to see. And what we're noticing in many countries around the world is often the local codes say, the minimum width of a travel lane has to be 3.5 meters. So what we're doing is we're starting with this high level guidance, getting the kind of the buy-in for the vision side of it, but then also working with local governments to produce their own street design manuals, right? The difference between a guidance and a manual then becomes a legal requirement. That's not going to happen overnight, but it's starting to shift then what the codes and policies that shape these impediments, because we get people who want to do the right thing and they can't. So it's important. We see this as the very first stepping stone for cities. It's going to take a while to do, but changing that chip is very important, and a big part of that comes from advocacy. A big part comes from the technical practitioners and of course leadership as well.
Rocco, something to add? And just very quickly, Aaron, you can get a 20% discount for that as well, for all those ideas. So why not? Rocco.
Well, I think the key really is demand from the bottom up. If we have sufficient people in the community who want something done and who think, and to make that an issue that legislators, our legislators, would think that is worth taking up, then we could force something to happen. It's all a matter of political will, I think. I mean, the example for Tamar, the bridge is all designed to connect to the existing walkway system across the road. It's just that there are, of course, possible controversies that might arise. And if there is no sufficient voices from the community to demand that could be happening, then nobody would dare touch it. So I think we need our legislators to be concerned about issues that we in this room are concerned about. I think that would be the first step to get government to do something and to respond.
I'm going to take one more question. I know I'm being told time is up, and this gentleman in the fantastic green shirt. If we can get a microphone over to him. Run. Everyone wants coffee, I know.
Never want to stand between coffee.
Good day, Andy Smith, Auckland, New Zealand. These walkways through private property, what guarantees that they'll stay open to the public? Are they still private? Are they public? The public realm's been degraded through cafes taking over public space, so who cleans them? Can you guarantee that the public will be able to use them while they exist?
Okay.
There are a number of ways that these things happened. One is that they are built into the lease conditions, that the property owner have to keep this open and keep this how wide as part of the lease conditions. And if they breach it, then of course government can take action. The other way this has happened is that there are incentives in the building code that gives the developer extra plot ratio or site coverage bonus if they provide certain routes open to the public 24 hours a day. Again, if they don't do it, then it will be in breach. It has happened that people start putting cafes or stalls on those places to not necessarily compromise, but seem to be compromising the quality of those spaces a few years back. And there's a big outcry in the newspapers about this. To the extent the government is now very reluctant to consider such measures, which is a great pity, I think. Because we need control, but we also need encouragement. So we only need to build up an effective controlling mechanism. And by and large, all those examples that I've shown you have remained intact through these years.
Thank you very much to our panel. If you would like to ask them more questions, feel free to do so during our coffee break. Just to let you know that we have parallel sessions in our rooms around in T1 to T6, so I hope you choose wisely. We also have another panel session in here as well. And if you would like to sign up for our workshops, please feel free to do so. Today is the last day. I think 5 o'clock is the deadline. And you can sign up for more than one workshop, up to a maximum of 2. I would encourage you to do so. Thank you very much indeed for now, and you can go grab some coffee. Thank you.